In 1903, a man was so rich, so obsessed with horses, and so determined to throw the most outrageous party New York had ever seen, that he literally hauled 32 horses up a freight elevator to the 4th floor of Manhattan's ritziest restaurant and served a 14-course dinner on horseback. The year was 1903, the man was C.K.G. Billings, and the party cost $50,000, which in today's money is about $1.8 million, for one dinner. On horses, Cornelius Kingsley Garrison Billings was born in 1861 in Saratoga Springs, New York, and right from the start, ordinary wasn't really in his vocabulary. At 17, he took a job at the People's Gaslight and Coke Company as a laborer. By 26, he ran the entire company as its president. By 40, he'd accumulated enough wealth that he simply retired and walked away. The New York Times crowned him the American Horse King, and at the peak of his fortune, he ranked among the 5 richest men in America with a net worth of $30 million, which translates to over $800 million today. What did he spend it on? Horses. The man burned through $175,000 a year just maintaining his horses. That was his annual horse budget, and he didn't seem to lose a moment's sleep over it. So when Billings finished building his brand new stable near Fort Tryon Park in northern Manhattan, a 25,000 square foot, 2-story palace for horses complete with a blacksmith forge, steam heating, electric lighting, a trophy room, a gymnasium, and individual brass nameplates on every single stall, he decided the occasion demanded a celebration. Not a quiet ribbon cutting though. He'd just been named president of the Equestrian Club, and tradition held that each new president throw a party that topped whatever came before. Billings intended to top them all. His original plan was to host the dinner at his sprawling estate right next to the Harlem River Speedway, where the city's elite raced their horses and carriages. But reporters caught wind of it. They started lurking around the property, and Billings grew uneasy, not wanting the press anywhere near his evening. So he called Louis Sherry. Louis Sherry ran the most exclusive restaurant in New York City, a 12-story Stanford white-designed French palace on the corner of 5th Avenue and 44th Street, complete with ballrooms, drawing rooms, and residential suites. Sherry's was where New York's high society went to see and be seen. Sitting directly across the street from Delmonico's, the two establishments locked in a constant rivalry for the loyalty of the city's social elite, a group so exclusive they were literally called the 400. Sherry heard the plan and apparently didn't flinch. He suggested moving the whole operation to his grand ballroom on the 4th floor, which meant getting 32 horses up there. 24 workers spent 3 days transforming that ballroom into something out of a fever dream. They laid sod across the entire floor, hauled in full-sized trees and shrubbery, released live birds into the room, and hung a giant harvest moon from the ceiling. Behind the horses, a massive canvas backdrop stretched across the wall, painted to look like an English countryside. When the 36 guests arrived at 8 o'clock on the evening of March 28, 1903, they didn't walk into a ballroom. They walked into a woodland garden that happened to occupy the 4th floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan. Each horse wore a white quilted satin saddle with bridle, martingale, and shoulder hangings done up in gold and white. Every guest's name was lettered in gold on the back of their assigned saddle, and a tray for holding food was fitted directly onto each one. But here's the detail that really gets you. The champagne, an 1898 Krug, was stored in saddlebags, and guests sipped it through rubber tubing, essentially straws running from a champagne bottle up to the rider's mouth. While the humans drank champagne through tubes, the horses ate oats from individual silk-covered mangers. Everyone was catered to, and the menu was absurd. 14 courses, starting with caviar on toast points, moving through turtle soup, then a fish course of truite au bleu, which is trout cooked so fresh that dunking it in vinegar turns the skin a striking blue-purple colour, served alongside a green herb sauce that must have looked incredible. Then came rack of lamb with glazed vegetables, guinea hen with lettuce heart salad, asparagus with hollandaise sauce, and the whole thing closed with flambéed peaches and coffee. All of it eaten while sitting on a horse on the 4th floor in formal evening wear. The drinks menu listed that 1898 Krug and scotch and sodas for the guests. Billings himself, though, he drank bottled ginger ale. Apparently he knew better than to drink and ride. When the meal ended, guests dismounted and settled in to watch a variety show while the horses were quietly led back to the freight elevator. Every attendee went home with a sterling silver horseshoe inscribed with the evening's menu. Billings had hired the Byron Company, one of the most prominent photography studios in New York, to document the whole thing, and those photographs became iconic. They show men in tuxedos astride horses in a decorated ballroom, champagne tubes in hand, looking for all the world like this was a perfectly normal Saturday evening. As the Society columnist Lucius Beebe later put it, the photograph reinforced people's belief that New York socialites went to bed in full evening dress after brushing their teeth in champagne. The total bill reached $50,000, working out to roughly $250 per person, or about $50,000 per guest in today's money. The New York Times called it one of the most novel dinners that has ever been given in the city. Critics were considerably less generous. The dinner hardened into a symbol of everything wrong with Gilded Age excess, a monument to the staggering gap between the ultra-wealthy and everyone else. 2 days later, on March 30th, Billings hosted a follow-up luncheon at the actual stable that had started everything, giving his guests a proper tour of the facility they'd technically been celebrating. And then the story takes a turn that feels almost poetic. In 1905, just 2 years after the dinner, Billings sold off his entire stock of horses. In 1917, he sold his estate to John D. Rockefeller Jr. for $35,000 an acre. In 1925, his mansion, Tryon Hall, burned to the ground. The New York Times reported that it spouted fire and smoke like a volcano, and when it was done, almost nothing remained except a small cottage that had served as the gatehouse and the driveway, which had originally cost $250,000 to build. Rockefeller hired the Olmsted brothers to redesign the property, and in 1935 he handed it over to the city as Fort Tryon Park, a public green space overlooking the Hudson River. Today, if you walk through Fort Tryon Park in Washington Heights, you're walking the grounds of the man who threw the most ridiculous dinner party in American history. That little cottage still stands, now serving as the Northern Manhattan headquarters for the New York City Parks Department, and once a year, during Open House New York, it opens for tours that fill up almost immediately. The photographs from that night in 1903 are preserved at the Museum of the City of New York. The original menu ledgers from Louis Sherry's restaurant are archived at NYU's Fales Library. Sherry's itself closed in 1919. Louis Sherry died in 1926. Billings died in 1937 in Santa Barbara, California, far from the ballrooms and stables and horses that had defined his most famous night. What was once the ultimate display of private wealth and excess is now a public park where anyone can walk for free, and honestly, that might be the best punchline a story like this could ever get. Thanks for watching. See you next time.